Yep.
Good evening and welcome to the January 21st meeting of the Glenville Town Board. Please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. We've recently, last week, lost a good friend of the town of Glenville and all the staff. Lorraine Deere passed away. I think many of you know Lorraine. She had come here on many occasions to honor the members of this board and our employees. She loved the highway department in particular and all the work our highway employees did. She was a lovely, lovely lady, a special lady actually. She spent time with Linda and I often coming in to visit and was a big member down at the senior center. She was a big part of Glenville, and I was able to go to the services the other day, and I just wanted for the invocation to read in her honor and memory her prayer card. So if you join me in prayer, please. And this is in loving memory of Lorraine Deere, December 25th, 1924, January 13th, 2015. And it reads, "Come, meet me in the garden, Lord. The day is fresh and bright. I like to walk and talk with thee and glory in thy might. Come, meet me in the garden, Lord, and take me by my hand. The flowers are blooming all around, and the trees are tall and grand. Come, meet me in the garden, Lord. Bestow on me thy love. Endow me with new hope and peace, and blessings from above. Come, meet me in the garden, Lord. How happy I will be. Uplift my heart and soul with joy, and set my spirit free. In memory of Lorraine Deere. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please read the roll.
Councilman Martin.
Here.
Councilman Pittavani.
Here.
Councilman Ramachar.
Here.
Councilwoman Wozzowski. Here. Supervisor Castle.
Here, we have agendas up front and have a fairly concise meeting. And so we'll start with town council reports on my left. I'll start with Councilman Ramachar.
A few items, Mr. Supervisor. EIG for 2005, Efficiency in Government Committee will be working on recommendations for the software upgrades. Also, they'll be submitting public, surveying the public for how town services are being provided. So that's pretty cool. With reference to parks, Indian Meadows in great shape. The skating rinks are in great shape thanks to the weather and the highway department employees working at the park. In reference to tax bills, the residents have until February 2nd to pay the tax bill without penalty. Usually it's due January 31st, but because that's all on the weekend, we have February 2nd. Also, just a reminder, March 3rd is the last day to submit STAR applications. If you haven't done so, please do so. If you did, you don't need to do it again. With the exception of the Enhanced STAR, seniors need to do that every year. And lastly, Senior Center is actually having a Bahamas cruise. So anyone interested in a 7-day cruise for $887. If anyone's interested, there's an open house sort of informational meeting January 27th at 6:30 at the Senior Center.
Excellent, thank you. Councilwoman Wozzowski.
I don't have any report, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Martin.
Yeah, just one small thing. We have ongoing with the comp plan development. We have a meeting with the tenants of the business park on Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock, sponsored by the town and our Small Business and Economic Development Committee. And we'll look for input as to ways we can improve the park in the coming years. So that's part of the comp plan effort.
Excellent, thank you. Councilman Pittavani.
Yes, I had a meeting of the Glenville Traffic Safety Board today, and we discussed the intersection at Route 50 and Freeman's Bridge Road, as well as the Freeman's Bridge Route 50 corridor, speeding cars on Banker Avenue, Ridge Road, and we were informed today that the state is going through with our crosswalk in front of the high school. If you remember, we partnered with the Village of Scotia and the school system, and they're going to be adding a portion of sidewalk in front of the high school, flashing lights, caution lights, and a crosswalk in front of the high school. So they're going to do that this summer, so we're very pleased.
Excellent. Was there any discussion on the Freeman's Bridge Road corridor and the casino impact?
Well, I brought that discussion up and mentioned that Tom Melander and I and Jim were going to be looking at this together with possibly, another party.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 5, which is the public hearing to hear all comments on the town's proposed public housing authority plan for the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program for 2015 through 2019. We have Mr. Mastriani here from Section 8 Housing, and if you'd like to open the public hearing, and if you'd like to start, and then anyone else who should be heard will ask you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jim Mastriani. A handful of things I want to tell you about, talking about tonight. I'll tell you about my company, work that we do, talk about your Housing Choice Voucher Program and your FSS program, why we're having a hearing. You're being handed a snapshot of some summary statistics that I compiled this afternoon, the voucher program. On the backside, there's some financials. We'll talk about that, and then I can take any questions from the board or public. So my company is Jemmy, founded by my father 40 years ago this year, and we've been working with you since 1976. So for 39 years, we've had a business relationship running the Housing Choice Voucher Program. Like I said, my father founded the company about 8 years ago. He was looking to retire, and so I replaced him. Prior to that, I've been working in the same industry, but on the software side, not on the administrative side. And so Jemmy administers Housing Choice Voucher programs and FSS programs. We do this in 9 counties. We help 2,500 families. I employ a staff of 22. We're located just up the road in Saratoga Springs. Now, the Housing Choice Voucher Program, sponsored by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, it's HUD's major program to help the elderly, the disabled, and the homeless provide safe, sanitary, and decent housing. And then another program we run in conjunction is called the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. And that works with participants who want to move out of subsidized existence and into self-sufficiency. It's a jobs training program. We do referrals with other agencies in the area. We work on budget, we work on credit, home ownership is a portion of that, job training, GED, those types of things. So the way the main program though is the HCV program, the way this works is it's a subsidy that is paid directly to participating landlords, and it subsidizes a portion of the rent and utilities for a participant who qualifies. And the subsidy is based upon the income of the participant. Now, it's a pretty complicated formula. It's kind of like doing your taxes. But a good rule of thumb is a participant doesn't pay more than 30% of their adjusted annual income towards their rent and utilities. Now, moving to the summary statistics, this can give you a snapshot of the program. So the annual funding, this was the number for 2014, was a little more than $300,000, $306,480. And that lets us help up to 49 families. Now, we don't quite have the money to support 49 families, and so as of today, the total number of families being helped is 46. Now, in our FSS program, we have 6 participants, and there are 2 of those folks who have escrow accounts. Now, that escrow account is an indicator of participants who've made positive strides and have received a raise. So when they started the program, their income was here. Now they're in the program, their income is up. Since their subsidy is based upon their income, their subsidy decreases. That's a disincentive to participate in the program. So we take that difference, put it in an escrow account. It earns interest. After 5 years, if they successfully graduate from the FSS program, they can then have that escrow deposit or that escrow account. And at times, it gets to be significant. There can be $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in there. This is money that the program has been spending anyway. Now there is a waiting list for this program. Now, we also happen to administer the HCV program with your neighbors down the road in the village of Scotia. And so since you have, overlapping borders, we've set up a combined waiting list between the two programs. And so right now, there are 169 people waiting on a waiting list. 148 of them have our first preference on the waiting list, and that means that they live or work within the town. You can see that the waiting list is actually quite long, and that the next person that we're going to help apply in November of 2011.
Jim, do you have the numbers broken out between the rows and
I don't have that, but I can get that for you.
I'm curious.
Moving down, we've got program utilization numbers. So this is the number of people who are participating in the program. Like I said previously, there's 46. Now, the vast majority, 87%, representing 40 participants, are elderly or disabled families. Now, so the difference between the total number and the elderly is 6. Now, moving back up the page and looking at the family self-sufficiency number, those 6 candidates are the best people to participate in the FSS program, because the elderly and the disabled are very good candidates to go through the FSS program, which is essentially a jobs training program. And so I'm happy to report that of the folks who are the best candidates to be in the FSS program, there are 6 of them, and we've got 6 of them. Moving down, we got inspections. Before a unit can participate in the program, and at least annually, we do an inspection of the unit. And I have 3 people on staff who are trained in inspections, and they have a certification from the EPA. They're certified in housing quality standard inspections. This is the federal standard that's required. And so last year, we did 77 inspections. Then you can see that 62 of them were passed inspections, 15 of them failed. Eventually, the unit does pass. If it doesn't pass, then we don't provide a subsidy. So it's really in the landlord's interest to make sure it's in compliance. Very rare that it eventually doesn't pass. And at the bottom, just on average, people utilize this program for 8 years. The elderly and disabled, a little more than 8 years, 8.3 years. And the other families, those 6, they've been on the program for average of 7 years. The average subsidy that we pay out is $454. On the back side, this is just 2 spreadsheets summarizing the last 2 years of funding we've received and then funding we've expended. The main point here is you'll see in the half variance column, that's the difference between what we were providing and what we spent. And you'll see a lot of numbers with parentheses indicating that they're negatives. And so just because of the way federal funding has been over the last couple of years, money's been tight. We've been sharpening our pencils. And so HUD is requiring us to spend into our reserves. So you can see that, at the end of 2012, we had almost $24,000 in reserve, and now at the end of 2014, we have $2,500. And nationwide, this is what's been happening in our industry, that housing authorities were sitting on a lot of unused funding. And so the president directed HUD to say, start using that funding. So things are a little tight right now, and so we have to be kind of conservative. So if we have some attrition, we'll probably sit on it now a little longer than we would in the past, because we're working with not quite $5,000 in reserve, which is really tight when you have, our monthly expenditures are, in the neighborhood of $23,000 to $24,000. So, since this is an income-based program, if there's an event like the recession a couple of years ago that would really dramatically affect the income of our participants, we could see our HAB expenditure go up really fast. So we've got to play a little conservative, because we So that is everything I need to say, so I can take some questions.
Do you have any questions for Jim? Well, I appreciate your work again, Jim. I know it's been a couple of years that we've been having you since I've been here anyway. And I appreciate it, and we're going to have a public hearing now, and I think later in the agenda we'll have our adoption of the...
And so I always want to close with thank you very much for being such a long-term client. I appreciate it, and we really appreciate working.
Thank you. We appreciate it, sir. Anyone wish to be heard on this matter? The public hearing is open. Anyone wish to be heard on the comments on the town's proposed public housing authority plan for Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program 2015 through 2019? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Move on to privilege of the floor. We do have a gentleman signed up, so we'll start with that person, and then we will, anyone wish to be heard, just raise your hand and we'll invite you to the podium. So we'll start with James Ligori. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, very good. Go by Jim Ligori, and the new president of Empire State Aerosciences Museum. And I'm really just here to introduce myself. We do reside within the town of Glenville, and I do want to forge some stronger bonds with the town. I think Kevin Millington, who's our vice president, has started that process, and I'm happy to also support any type of joint efforts with the town. That'd be great, and any other way I can support, just let me know. Okay, we're right up the road, and we're usually available.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. I do have a question for you. I know that we have a new board member, Mr. Sid Ramatar. Did you tell him that the initiation is he has to wash all those jets out there?
If he,
With the supervisor, right?
I will tell you what you have to wear.
I saw you going there. I know where you're going. How is he working out okay?
Yeah, terrific. Actually, we're very excited that he joined, and he's brought some really good ideas that we want to implement, and we look forward to it. So thank you too. So thank you for being here, Jim. Thank you.
Do you have any questions for Jim?
Do you still have the flight simulator for the simulator with the barnstormer and so forth?
Yes. Yes, we call that our SRV.
My late wife actually worked for the museum back in the 90s, and I was trained to operate that, and we brought it to the Altamont Fair to raise money, and it was a really nice attraction. I just wondered if you still have it.
Yes, we do. It's a lot more to maintain now.
Yes, I'm sure.
It's kind of vintage. And we've had it at the Oktoberfest. Was that what the town Oktoberfest? We've had it there, and we did pretty well with that.
Good.
Another thing we do is not on that scale, but we do have flight simulators that we use. That you heard of STEM, science and technology, math. We go to those events with our flight simulators, which are mainly computer programs with a flight simulator. But we do have some nice hardware to use to simulate flying. So we also use those in our educational programs and on-site or off-site. So we do a lot of that too.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, anyone else wish to be heard at privilege of the floor? Anyone else? Going once, going twice. The floor is now closed. Move to supervisor's comments to the board. I'll just give you a quick rundown on a few key things that I've been working on this past couple of weeks, actually, since we met at the organizational meeting. We didn't have a supervisor's report, so now we're going to make up for it and add some earlier in the month. I did have the opportunity to meet with the mayor of Scotia on the 5th and talk about ideas on how we can share costs and share capital expenses, potentially for a new facility. We had a good conversation, I felt, about his needs as far as being outdated and not being able to meet the needs of the village residents based on facilities, and we talked a lot about our needs as well. The fact that we have a tremendous amount of capital expenses in this building if we're going to stay. The roof, the heating system, the cooling system, the parking lot adds up to at least almost $500,000 right there just on those couple of items. So I thought we had a good discussion about maybe talking about sharing those costs between the village and the town and a new facility, but I was a little surprised that that's not really how it turned out in the Gazette. So as I understand it, they're not interested in joining with us, and I think we all read that in the Gazette. So, do we cross them off at this point? Do we continue to try to court them? We've been trying to court them for over a year now, probably 2 years, closer to 2 years. And so, at this point, I think the village is going their own direction. But we did have a meeting, we did talk about it, and this is where we are now. The same day, I also had a meeting with the UCC Advisory Board. We went over some issues related to operations, although that's mostly left with the Technical Advisory Committee. It's kind of rose to the level because there's just some impacts happening to the towns and the residents, and so we're working on those, and there's going to be these bumps as we've talked about. Rotterdam did join. They anticipate that's going to help because now we're at full complement, so I'm hoping that's the case. And we did talk about the funding mechanism and that the circuit breaker was tripped, not technically tripped, but tripped to the point where the county is putting in some funds to cover Rotterdam's shortfall because they came in a lot later than they anticipated. So the cost sharing wasn't equitable, and they did step up and do that. On the 7th, I attended the Vernon Hills Boston Light Business Professional Association with 2 other supervisors. We gave a presentation, Supervisor of Boston, Supervisor of Charlton, and Supervisor of Glenville. Traditionally have started the year with a vision of how we see our towns going forward together. And it was well attended. It was at the Boston Town Hall, and it was, as I said, well attended, and I think we had a good discussion. Also attended the J Bistro ribbon cutting on the 9th. That's a great restaurant. If you haven't been there already, the food's a little bit different than it has been in the past. I recommend it highly. I did have the opportunity to address the Scotia Rotary on the 13th about they asked about the state of the town, so I was able to attend that and provide a mini version of the state of the town. They didn't want a half-hour version. I think they might have thought that was a little too long. We also had a good meeting with the DEC regarding the Sunnyside Road project that's going forward. We're at about 30 to 40% completion on engineering. Tommy and I, Dana was ill, unfortunately, but Tommy and I had a good meeting with them. It's progressing along. We're right on track. We're doing all the things we need to do, but the engineering is coming up, so this spring we'll be starting more work on that. Also hosted the Mohawk Towpath meeting here on the 15th, which we're a member of, the Mohawk Towpath, so we're trying to find ways of connecting the town to the Mohawk Towpath a little bit more, and there might be some Oktoberfest ideas on that, because now we're in Melwick, right on the river, so we had a nice discussion on that. I was able to also then attend that same day the Center for Economic Growth meeting with our state legislators. They brought in all the Capital Region legislators and all the municipal leaders to have a lunch and to discuss the legislative agenda that we have going into the session. And it was a nice spirited discussion. Some of the legislators understand what we're dealing with. Some of the legislators just don't get it. But we had a good talk. The one area that I hit on hard was the tax cap. If you're going to reauthorize the tax cap, which is up this year, you have to look at a few things. And we've all talked about it. You have to look at capital expenses being exempt. You have to look at emergency expenses being exempt. You have to look at a way to help towns, and particularly from a smaller municipality point of view, maybe not so much the larger ones that can self-insure for their health insurance. We have to help the towns deal with insurance costs. You can't have a tax cap in place fairly. Have the town absorb 10 to 15% increases, and then say you're going to be held to a 2% tax increase. You've got to deal with a way of letting us help bring those costs down for our employees and for our residents. And until you do that, you're really being disingenuous with tax cap. So that was a discussion that I brought to it, and hopefully that resonated with with some folks. We had a facility meeting with the committee, Mike and Jason and Jamie, myself. Had a nice discussion on how do we want to proceed with our needs going forward as we explore our options. And so we're going to be engaging department heads and the board and residents and some ideas and concepts on how to go forward and how to do it where we can share our costs with somebody. May not be another municipality, but it's going to be somebody, because we're not going to put the cost of the new facility solely on the backs of the taxpayers. Those days, I think, are over. That was in our State of the Town address. We talked about that, and we need to go forward with that. I met with the postmaster today from Schenectady to discuss ideas of either beautifying his property or coming into a new concept, complex, and we'll continue. We didn't have any solid answers coming out of it, but the conversation continues, and so we'll keep working on that. I think tomorrow, Jim mentioned the business park meeting, which is going to be an important part of the comprehensive plan rewrite, and we're going to host the business park members and talk about what we can do there to invest and upgrade that facility too. And then just lastly, coming up, I have on Monday the 26th, starting a department head meeting a little bit differently than we've done it. We used to run 2 monthly meetings in a roundtable fashion. We're doing one roundtable meeting and then one meeting where it's one-on-one with me and the department head to really drill down on some of the operational issues that we're having and some of the things that we need to talk about in more specifics, and really just between the supervisor and the single department head. So those will run concurrent meetings Monday morning, 45 minutes each. And it's really meant to focus, micro-focus on specific operational issues, whereas the other one is more of a roundtable where everyone gets a flavor of what's going on. So I think operationally it's a little bit of a change, but we're going to try that and we can see how that works. And I have a meeting on the 28th with the 2 school districts, the Burn Hills, Boston Lake, and Scotia Glenville, to talk about, continuing to talk about how we can share services with them. And that's always a positive discussion, so I'm hoping more will come out of that. And lastly, we have two more meetings next week on the 28th, the same day. We'll be meeting with the senior center folks to talk about how they might participate in a potential new facility and what that means for them and the upgrades that are possible. And on the 29th, I have a meeting with our technology, well, not a consultant at this point yet, but someone who is suggesting ways to move forward on some technology upgrades. And so talking with him and seeing how we can move forward. So it's been a busy couple of weeks, going to be a busy couple of weeks for January, but things seem to be progressing. And I don't have a financial update for you yet, because I think the last time we met, we pretty much went over that. Nothing's really changed. Any questions or comments for me? Thank you. So I apologize, in the beginning of the meeting, I did not mention the 3 add-ons we have for resolutions. They're not on the agenda, but they are add-ons that came in late. Add-on number 1 is a resolution that deals with the Glenville Police Benevolent Association and the parties to collective bargaining agreement and the terms which had expired on December 31st, 2012. The add-on number 2 is the same. You look at summaries of these when we get into them, and then add-on number 3 also deals with another PBA collective bargaining issue. So there are 3 items that deal with the PBA and some agreements we've reached with that bargaining unit. So with that, those 3 add-ons will come in after item number 14. So we'll go to item number 8, which is a resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Works to purchase 1 fleet vehicle. Do I have a motion?
So
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this is something of a housekeeping resolution. Last year, we authorized purchase of a vehicle for the building inspector to utilize in his day-to-day work. We did not purchase that vehicle as of the end of the year. So this resolution is to reauthorize the purchase of a vehicle for the building inspector and to be used for his daily duties. The cost is not to exceed $20,000. It is included in this year's budget. It was rolled back into the fund balance at the end of last year because we did not make the purchase. We increased the amount $1,000 over the amount approved from last year because I also believe that we had trouble finding a suitable vehicle for $19,000. So this resolution would approve the purchase of that vehicle not to exceed $20,000.
Excellent. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Catalani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, Resolution 9, authorizing the purchase of actuary services from Jefferson Solutions. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Just for a point of discussion, as you know, each year, because the town of Glenville has more than 100 employees and retirees covered under health insurance, that we need to hire an actuary to perform the analysis under what is known as GASB 45 to value our post-retirement benefit obligation other than pensions. This must be completed for 2015, 2016, 2017. We've done this in the past. We have used for 12, 13, and 14 Jefferson Solutions. We found them to be a good vendor for us. This is professional services, so they're exempt from competitive bidding. And this resolution would authorize us to, again, engage in with Jefferson Solutions for our GASB 45 for years of 2015, 16, and 17 at a cost not to exceed $3,750. No discussions, questions, comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Catalani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
I will abstain from voting due to personal relationship with Jefferson Solutions.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 10, a resolution authorizing the hiring of Patrick DeCesar. Do I have a motion?
So
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. So this one is, again, we go out to solicit competitive bids for our property casualty and workers' comp insurance for 2012 to cover the 2013 through 2015 insurance year. So we used an outside consultant with that. His name is Patrick DeCesar, to assist with preparation of bid specifications and review the bid proposals. The services of an insurance consultant are also, as earlier, professional service exempt from bidding. We have a long history of working with Patrick. He does a good job for us. This resolution would authorize us to pay the consultant fee to Patrick not to exceed $3,900. This apparently is something that's highly specialized. And so preparing these bid specs is something that we usually use, or we have used in the past, and we would like to continue using a professional to do that. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Catalani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, resolution 11. This is a resolution authorizing the payment to Michael or Christine Ironside. Do I have a motion?
So
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Just for discussion, this happens to be a resolution that deals with the owners at 168 Hutchintown Road, where it was needed to shut off water service to make necessary repairs on October 22nd of 2014. The property owner asked for guidance from the town of Glenville Water Department for after the owners found several water shut-off valves located close proximity or near their property. Unfortunately, the water department mistakenly identified a damaged shut-off valve as theirs. There happened to be an issue where the lines were crossed, so when they were built, and this was how the homes were built, unfortunately, the builder crossed the lines, so there's no way to know that they identified the wrong valve needed to be fixed. So the homeowner spent $1,242 to replace the valve and then to find out that it wasn't the valve. So they're seeking reimbursement from the town for the expense of $1,242 to pay for the fixed valve, that apparently wasn't theirs. The Commissioner of Public Works, in consultation with our town attorney, agrees the town should reimburse the owners the money, and again, it's Michael and/or Christine Ironside to settle a claim against the town of Glenville for water shut-off valve replacement at 168 Ketchum Road. Do I have any questions or comments? It's unfortunate, but it appears we must do this. Please call the roll.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Catalani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramnatar?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, Resolution 12, authorizing the purchase of one marked police vehicle. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Moved and second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, in order to maintain a safe and efficient fleet of vehicles to meet the public safety needs of the town, the police chief wishes to purchase one marked replacement police vehicle to replace a marked police vehicle that has reached the end of its useful life. The purchase of said vehicle is provided for within the approved 2015 budget appropriations, and the state municipal law 103-3 permits a municipality to make a purchase through any county within the state pursuant to County Law 4082, provided that such purchases are determined to result in cost savings after considering all factors, including service and delivery charges, and providing that the vehicles can be made on the same terms, conditions, and specifications as the county with the contract. The town of Glenville may also utilize contract pricing through the state of New York. The police chief has determined that the Glenville Police Department will be best served by purchasing a Chevrolet Caprice model, and therefore is looking for us to approve that purchase not to exceed $37,000, including all the necessary equipment and expense for the vehicle.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please report the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Catalani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramnatar?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 13, adopting the town of Glenville's public housing authority plan. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Just for discussion, we just heard from Jim Mastriani regarding the town's Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program provided by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. This resolution would then adopt a written public housing authority plan to establish the local policies for administration of the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program in accordance with regulations of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. So this would ratify our plan. Any questions or comments? And again, this will go from 2015 through 2019. Seeing none, please report the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Catalani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramnatar?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, Resolution 14, approving the town board monthly reports for December 2014. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moving second. Any changes, questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, please report the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Catalani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramnatar?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. We move on to our three add-ons. We'll start with add-on number 1, a resolution between the town of Glenville and the Glenville Police Benevolent Association. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Moved and second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, the town of Glenville and the Glenville Police Department Benevolent Association are parties to a collective bargaining agreement for a term which expired December 31st, 2012. The town and the PBA have been negotiating the terms of condition for a new agreement. Negotiating teams for both have reached a tentative agreement for a new term from January 1st, 2013 through December 31st, 2016, the terms of which are contained in the attached memorandum of agreement. The town board has met in executive session a number of times during the course of negotiations to discuss the matter with the negotiating teams, and the PBA membership has ratified the proposal. Therefore, we're looking for the supervisor to sign such agreement.
Thank you. I was able to get break out the agreement, which we all had and read and were part of the negotiations on, but just for the point of benefit for our residents, I'll just highlight some of the key points of the agreement. And I'll start with the first and most obvious, right in the contract. This agreement that we're voting on provides wage increases for the PBA members of 1.5% for each year of the proposed agreement, including 2013, 2014, 15, and 16. So it's a 4-year agreement. Just to put these in context, so we know what that means, the Social Security Administration, which is obviously we know what that is, for the COLAs in 2013 it was 1.5%, and in 2014 it was 1.7%. So this is right in line with appropriate COLAs according to the federal government. We also resolved some matters here that had some potential fiscal impacts to the town, and I'll just go through a few of them briefly. One is we resolved a PBA demand for impact negotiations concerning the loss of our dispatchers to the UCC and the changes resulting from that move by agreeing to meet in a labor management session to address operational issues. And incidentally, one of the things that came out of the discussion with our department heads at that offsite meeting I held was that we used to hold departmental labor union meetings, and we haven't in some time, so that's my fault. And one of the things I resolved to do was to continue or start doing those meetings again, so that will start up shortly. Also in this, we resolved a potential grievance that was held in abeyance regarding whether the town had any obligation to pay or reimburse our most recent hirees contributing to the retirement system. So that got resolved. We also resolved a potential grievance that was held in abeyance on the health insurance copay reimbursement for certain outpatient services by compromising that the member's copay responsibility go from $250 to $375 rather than burdening members with the full cost. We streamlined the grievance process that benefits both parties, reduced the number of steps, and provided time limitations. We adopted a new salary schedule going forward that starts slightly lower, increases the number of steps to reach top salary by 1, and smooths out the dollar amount of steps to eliminate huge increases from year to year that were part of the prior schedule. So that was something that was helpful. We created a 2-step salary structure for detectives and sergeants, where the prior schedule put detectives and sergeants immediately on the same pay level as more experienced officers, recognizing that as with all positions, there is a training period. We restricted health insurance buyout to $3,000 for all members except those currently exercising the option in line with the buyout limitations accepted by our other town employees. This was important for the town. So that limits the buyout in accordance with what the other employees have already agreed with. We restrict any expansion of health insurance coverage in retirement unless the retiree pays for 100% of the costs of the change. So, for example, if somebody retires and they decide to either marry, remarry, have a child, adopt, whatever it is, that is not at the cost of the town. That change will be at the cost of the retiree. We eliminated the town's cost for the YMCA group membership, figuring that the PBA could actually get probably a better negotiated rate directly. We eliminated the town's cost for additional life insurance coverage for PBA members, and we adjusted the longevity payment schedule, which will help both the town and the folks and the police officers on that schedule. Both the town and the union had other issues that each side would have liked to address, but we both recognize that our duty to negotiate is continuing and we can and must continue our dialogue so we can ensure fair and equitable terms and conditions of employment for our officers while not overburdening our taxpayers. I want to say before we have any discussion on this, I appreciate all the work that the PBA leadership did and all the work of our police officers every day. We know, if you've read the papers lately or turned on any news stations, you know that this board, I and this board, believe that we're at a limit. We're at a limit. And particularly with the development going on, if the casino comes in, we need to find ways of bringing more resources into the town, and we're working on that. But I appreciate, I know it was a long road, I know there was a lot of discussion, and unfortunately, nature of negotiation sometimes just creates a dynamic that isn't great between the two parties, but I've always appreciated professionalism, and I look forward to going forward now over the next couple of years and working together. I think it's a fair and affordable agreement. As we said, it wasn't exactly everything everyone wanted, but I think that's the nature of negotiations, and that's the nature of agreement. So it's something I think that's affordable to our taxpayers and fair to our employees. Any questions or comments?
I would just like to thank both teams for working hard together to coming up with a contract here in the town without going further.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any questions, comments? Seeing none, please call the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Petlavani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramachar?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Kettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, add-on resolution 2. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, the Town of Glenville and the Glenville Police Benevolent Association are parties to a collective bargaining agreement for a term which expired December 31st, 2012, and now a new one. During the course of negotiations for a successor collective bargaining agreement, the town controller discovered that the number of years of service credited to certain members of the PBA for purposes of calculating longevity payments were not consistent with town records regarding their date of hire and prior service credit. The parties have researched the causes of these discrepancies and have reached a tentative agreement resolving them in conjunction with their agreement on the terms of a successor collective bargaining agreement for a new term from January 1st, 2013 through December 31st, 2016, the specific terms of which are contained in paragraph 3 in Exhibit A of the proposed memorandum of agreement. The overpayments and longevity payments previously based upon the erroneous years of service credit will be recouped by the town for future longevity payments as provided in the memorandum of agreement. The town board desires to resolve these longevity service issues thereby avoiding potential grievances and/or litigation as a fair and equitable compromise under the facts and circumstances. And this would be for the town board to authorize the supervisor, the town controller, and the police chief to correct town and department records to reflect the service credit of the affected members of the police department.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Petlavani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramachar?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Kettsley?
Yes, last resolution, add-on 3, is a resolution again between the town of Glenville and the Glenville Police Benevolent Association. Do I have a motion?
So
Do
moved.
I have a second?
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, the Town of Glenville and the Glenville Police Benevolent Association are parties to a collective bargaining agreement for a term which expired December 31st, 2012. The PBA filed a demand for impact negotiations with respect to the alleged changes in the terms and conditions of employment of unit members of the result of the consolidation of town dispatch operations with the Schenectady County Unified Communications Center. The negotiation terms for both have reached a tentative agreement resolving that demand in conjunction with their agreement on the terms of a successor collective bargaining agreement for a new term from January 1st, 2013 through December 31st, 2016, the terms of which are contained in the attached memorandum of agreement. The town board has met in executive session during the course of negotiations to discuss the matter with the negotiating team, and the PBA membership has ratified the proposed memorandum of agreement. The result is the town board of the town of Glenville authorized the supervisor to enter into the attached memorandum of agreement with the PBA.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Petlavani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramachar?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Kettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Last item is new business. I'll start on my left, Councilman Ramachar.
Nothing new, Mr. Supervisor.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski.
Nothing new, Mr. Supervisor.
Councilman Martin.
Nothing new.
Councilman Petlavani.
No new business.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, for 4. I will take no new business for me, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move it.
Second?
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.